Welcome to all of you who are viewing this Times Techies webinar. My name is Sujit John. I have with me my colleague Shilpa Fadnis, and together we will moderate this session. We have a very special session today. It's in association with IESA, the India Electronics and Semiconductor Association. We are focusing on an issue whose importance can't be overemphasized. It's on how to build an electronics products nation. India is heavily, and when I say heavily, I mean really heavily dependent on imports of electronics products. It's India's second biggest import category after oil. Even though we are now manufacturing a lot of mobile phones, TVs, and other products, a lot is still imported, much of it from China. Most of the components, including integrated circuits, are imported. India is very good in the semiconductor design and development area, but again, many worry that most of that talent is in the R&D centers of MNCs in India, and we just don't have enough activity focused on the India market and requirements, not enough local companies. To discuss this issue of how to build an electronics products nation, we have a very distinguished panel today. We have with us Ajai Chowdhry. Ajay he co-founded HCL together with Shiv Nadar and 4 others. He's also a former chairman of HCL. HCL had started as a company making personal computers. Welcome, Ajay.
Thank you.
We have with us Satya Gupta. He's chairman of IESA and CEO of Seedeyas Innovations. Seedeyas is focused on building intelligent electronics products and solutions in the area of medical electronics, agriculture, and environment. Satya has been an entrepreneur. He has also previously worked at Intel for many years. Welcome, Satya. We have with us Jitendra Chaddah. He's country manager for the global supply chain in Intel India. He's fondly called JC. JC's been with Intel for more than 23 years, including in the US. Welcome, JC. And we have with us Radha Shelat. She's CEO of Nevis Networks India. Nevis uses its own ASIC-based technology to build LAN security systems. It has its office in Pune, and that's where she is now. Welcome, Radha.
Thanks.
And we have Deepak Bharadwaj. He's not yet joined us, I think, but he'll join us, I think. He's Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs for Samsung Southwest Asia Operations. Deepak has been with Samsung for over 6 years, and before that, with Texas Instruments and Intel. Those who are viewing this can send in questions through the chat box. Shilpa and I will put them to the panelists. I'll start this discussion with this. IESA had its Vision Summit last week, and IESA had 2 world-renowned technologists, Vinod Dham and Arogya Swami Paulraj, speaking, and both of them sounded very worried about India being too far behind in semiconductor and core ICT technologies. Let me start by asking Ajay first, and then the others can pitch in. How do you see this? How worrying is the scenario now?
You see, it's become more and more worrying with the current geopolitical situation, with China flexing its muscles. And I think rightly, Senator Sasse from the Intelligence Committee in the US Senate has said the next war will be fought with semiconductors. So, we are absolutely not ready. We have done nothing in this area pretty much. We just had one small little fab which was created 25, 30 years ago, which has been slightly upgraded under space, but that's all we have. And I think we are really staring at a very serious security situation, because with hardware, see, a lot of stuff is happening in software, and government has taken decision to ban a whole bunch of software apps. But what about hardware? Nobody's really taken any view on hardware. And I think that's really where it's something that a government needs to do. And for 10 years, I've been pretty much part of the semiconductor game. I sort of, as part of my committee's recommendations, we talked about setting up a couple of fabs 10 years ago. And since 10 years, we've had 30 odd meetings. And we haven't yet come to a decision. So now we've had some good meetings in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Satya has been involved in a couple of those. And we are trying to see whether the government could take quicker decisions in now keeping in mind the geopolitical situation.
Get the feeling that they are serious now?
Looks like it. We had a meeting this morning. That's where I talked about having met Satya a little earlier. So yes, there is a lot of seriousness, and we've given some recommendations from IESA also, and we've had a couple of good meetings with the government. So they are quite serious now about doing things. But the kind of money China has put into this area, I mean, JC will know a whole lot more than I do. Amount of money they put in behind semiconductors is just phenomenal. And the US has recently set up a new concept which is called the Chip Act. And they are making sure that there is no security issue as far as the US is concerned. And that's where they are going.
Okay. Satya, you want to pitch in? I mean, next war will be fought with semiconductors. I mean, if it's that serious, then what is your sense?
Unmute yourself, Satya.
I think Ajay put it very rightly. Semiconductor is not just economic basically thing, it's becoming very strategic as far as basically country's security goes. And America's Chip Act, Japan's initiation of basically putting $1 billion fund to get the companies back into Japan, and other countries making move. So there is a strategic part of it, but another part of it is basically the way the current situation in India with respect to the fields like agriculture, healthcare, education. It's very, very critical that we have basically electronics products to support these areas. That's the only way we can address these challenges in these 5 critical areas we call basically agriculture, healthcare, education, mobility, and strategic security, right? Defense is also becoming very important. So, so both semiconductor and domestic electronics products to serve these needs has become basically very, very critical, both from an aspirational need of the basically 1.3 billion people, as well as basically the pointers which Ajay said, right? If we want to serve this large population, we need to have very significant development of electronics products in these areas. That's the only way we can conquer this battle. We can't have as many teachers, we can't have as many doctors, we don't have that kind of a thing. So electronics and the technology is the only way to address this large need of the country other than the strategic needs which Ajay said.
Okay. JC?
Sujit, thanks. Sujit, I think, well said, by Mr. Ajay and Dr. Satya. Here is how we have to look at it, in my view. I think we have to look at this industry in a holistic view. We have to look at it from, there is a design element to the industry, there is a manufacturing element to it, and there is a materials part of it to the industry. And, if we just say, if we want to focus on one area at the cost of other, or just be, ahead in one, I think that would not make sense in my view. If you have to really look at it, manufacturing is important, but IP and R&D is the fundamental and essential to fuel the growth of electronics and semiconductor industry worldwide. And where India is really very strong, I would say. We have, lot of designers, working out of India, contributing to that industry. Manufacturing, yes, we should look at it from business viability point of it. What is the right time? What are the right areas? And I think we create a vision for that in that space in India. And the one that we are forgetting, which can be one of the areas where we can be very competitive, is in the materials part of the semiconductor. You can look at chemicals, the gases, the vapors. So these are the things that are already used in other verticals. These are used in maybe pharmacy area. They are used in the paint industry, the petrochemical industries. How some of these materials can be enhanced and upgraded so that they can be used for the semiconductor industry. So I think, Sujit, my view is we need to focus on all three together. Versus saying, we have to be focused on one or the other. And and if manufacturing, the business viability is there, absolutely. But R&D would still play a very, very critical role in fueling the whole growth of the industry. Whether it is agri-tech or um, in the medical devices, or the retail devices, or for that matter, automobile. Right? So that is my view on how we should go about it.
You please unmute yourself, Sujit.
Yeah. I think JC, I was told there's some echo from your side. I'm not sure. Maybe you could check that. But okay. Yeah, well, so JC was saying we need to focus on all sides: design, development, manufacturing. It can't be just one. Radha, opening remarks from you on this whole point of India being so far behind in semiconductor
So
manufacturing.
India is far, far behind. We have to just accept it. And we have been missing the bus for a long time. We have seen we are seeing as an industry, we are seeing since 90s, since 80s, we are seeing the processors come along, we see the networking gear come along, we see a lot of things are happening, but we remain just consumers, importing things, putting things together here. But there is no serious effort to really become a country that designs, does the R&D, does the innovation, and builds it even for its own consumption. So I think the sense of urgency is very high. And if I take, like, just building on what JC said, you have to look at it holistically. Today, you cannot say that we will do chips and we will design chips and we'll create the infrastructure for that. Today, if I just say that give me 10 crore tablets because all these children sitting in all these remote places in the country need tablets, they are working on mobiles, they are getting educated on mobiles where 2-3 children are sharing mobiles. I don't know what this education is about unless they have some device in their hand. So can we just manufacture tablets? Can we design tablets? Do we have components for that? I don't think the answer to all that is no. And this is one very basic device that I'm talking about. There is lots and lots and lots. You want to build data centers, you want to build cloud-based infrastructure, you want the internet, you need the reach. It's like everything is open to be taken up, and we are just way too behind in this. And we are a nation where the skill set is not missing. Like somebody said, it's all working for MNCs. So we know what we want to do, but it's like we are in the services mode, not in the products building mode.
Okay. And you are trying to build. So tell us, what are the kind of challenges that you face in trying to build products out of here?
Oh, it's like being an entrepreneur and being a entrepreneur, like how Nevis was, it's only challenges. And when you get out of, you say, just, I'm so happy I got out of it, because there are challenges as when you are building the product and technology and you're well funded, which was the case with Nevis. We build a network security solution. So we built our own packet inspection chip all here in Pune. And entire R&D done here. We got funding from Silicon Valley, but we had all the capability and everything done from here. There was no engineering. I'm talking about 2003, 4, starting from there. We got 5-6 years to build the technology and the product. But the moment the marketing starts, the moment more capital requirement starts, the moment now breaking through the government layers is required, meeting the compliances, certification, every single thing becomes selling in the defense, meeting the public sector.
Tough, is it? It's very tough, is it?
It's all the system of L1 being the vendor is like impossible to crack for a startup like what we had.
Yeah.
So it's like everything is against you and you have to still make it work. So you have to be very, very brave. You have to be very fit. You have to be working in with the US side of your customers, with investors, with India, with government, with so like I have done hundreds of trips to NIC just to get our product certified and put in the government price listing. But we didn't find a single person who would really take deeper interest and understand what this is about.
Is it still the same, you think?
I should go back and see because we sold our product in 2017 and the biggest regret I have, that exit was important, but we built some really important technology, including the chip, the entire device, the entire software system. We sold to a lot of banks, to DRDOs, to NSDL, we had very high profile customers. But that's not enough for a product of that scale and that kind to survive unless there is significant funding which is available and capital available for the product. And Indian market is small. It's very difficult market because you are constantly competing with the likes of Cisco. We were in network security. So there is a Cisco and is a Forescout, and these are American companies. One is a security giant, one is a networking giant. And you are competing with both with very limited resources.
Okay.
And we did a good job, I think, but it's just not enough. It's very stressful.
Ajay, coming back to you, I mean, so what is the solution now? What are the things that you are proposing to the government? Is Ajay muted?
Sir, can you please unmute yourself, sir?
Ajay, you're muted.
Well, actually, it's a pretty long story, pretty much like the semiconductor story. I've been involved with hardware since the day I started business. So I have been seeing the whole journey, and I can relate to what Radha is saying. Now, coming to about 2011, I chaired a committee which was called Carol. And this committee was set up by the principal scientific advisor. And we sort of said that let's do R&D in developing products. And that was our aim. That's what this committee stood for. And we told the government, we had a series of discussions with all stakeholders. And we came up with a list which was called the volume product list. And we said, what are the volume products of India, which we are importing? And why don't we put together a strategy to design and manufacture in India? So we made a list of about 6-7 products. They consisted of smart meters, micro ATMs, converged device between tablet and mobile for education and healthcare. We talked about surveillance cameras. We said, low-cost Indian smartphone, we must develop ahead of time. Okay, so that was the idea, and then a set-top box. So these were volume products that we thought of, and we created a paper on each of these after discussions with the whole industry. And this paper was actually submitted to MeitY. And all that happened was that they got somebody to design a local gas software for the set-top box, which again didn't become very popular, and the rest was forgotten. So today, we are sitting so many years later, and we are trying to say that India imports a lot of electronics from China, and now we must change. So, these kind of situations have happened. Then again, IESA put together a very nice survey, which they worked with Frost & Sullivan, and this was 2014. And in 2014, we came up with this list of 20 products, which are again volume products, 80% of the market. And we said 4 components and these 20 products should be prioritized for design and manufacturing in India. Again, government accepted it, but nothing happened. So mobile phones were in that list, which happened a little later, notebooks, desktops, inverters, LCD monitors, base stations, and a whole bunch of products. So it was totally on product orientation. And our whole thought was that why can't we sit and design these products in India? And one of the thoughts was, why can't we get designs done for each of these products and make it available to multiple manufacturers in the country, so that we could have enough competition and we would have innovation around the basic design, and then we would bring all manufacturing and design to India. And if the volumes are big enough, people will design the chips for it, and we might get them fabricated abroad, but at least the design will happen. But again, nothing happened. That's really where we are sitting today. And
so, what is the problem?
Now we are sitting with Atmanirbhar Bharat, and in that, there are many products that are being looked at. One of them is TVs. Thank God for that. They're looking at a volume product like TVs. Mobile, to some extent, has been done, but it's totally oriented towards less design and more manufacturing. So I think the value addition piece is still missing. I mean, who's designing a mobile phone in India? When we talked about designing a smartphone 10 years ago, if we had designed it, we wouldn't be importing crazily like the way we are doing today. So that's where we are. So if I were to look at it today and I say, what could be 2 products or 3 products that we should really go after? I would say still the set-top box is a very, very good candidate, because we are currently importing 95% of those. Okay. And that's a very sad state of affairs. And what has happened is that not only are we importing from China, we are importing surreptitious products from other countries under an FTA, which says 35% value addition, while they actually do 5 or 10% value addition, because the whole product comes from China. Okay. And the other hand, surveillance cameras. Look at the large market in India. It's growing and growing and growing and growing. 5,000 crore market today, expected to grow to 20,000 crores, a 20 billion market globally. So if we were to just take these 2 critical products and say, we are going to design and manufacture India in a huge way, we could reduce a huge bunch of imports.
For the design side, what would you recommend? You said they have too much focus on manufacturing now.
No. There are huge bunch of design companies in India. I mean, there are members of IESA who can easily design these products. There's no big deal. And there are enough system software companies who can design the gas for the set-top box. There's no big deal. I think what has really happened is that if you look at China, what did they do for set-top boxes? They decided no imports will be allowed. Right. So India took the same decision a few years ago, but they took it in a different way. Zero duty on all set-top boxes. So what happens? Flood of imports and no design and no manufacturing. Why did they make it zero duty? Because politically, it made sense for us to make set-top boxes cheap, so that people will convert from not buying set-top boxes to buying set-top boxes. But that's the kind of inverted duty type of thinking we have in this country. I still feel positive. I still feel these kind of things can be easily done. I don't see, JC, for example, what's the big deal about creating surveillance cameras and STBs in India? We are a huge market for both.
Satya, you want to add to that?
Yeah,
Well, IESA, what is it recommending to the government, and what kind of response have you got?
Sure. So 2 things I'll say. First, let me comment about basically. Am I audible?
A little louder.
Okay. So, see, we always get into this discussion about China, India, and all those things. So one thing I think we should all notice that if we look at the last 20 years journey of basically China, what did they do, right? They started with low value add manufacturing. From there, they were moved to high value added manufacturing. But their ultimate goal was to create leadership position in 5 important products, some of which Ajai said, right? So if you look, they are today in top 3 in telecom. Okay, they are today top 3 basically into home networking, whether it's a routers or STB or any of those things. They are probably number 1. Hikvision is number 1 in security cameras. Okay, and LED and those things are there. So what they did, they converted their strength in manufacturing to taking a leadership position in the product area, right? Now, every country has to chart their own course, right? We cannot take that course. What our strength is basically design. So now the challenge in front of us is to take the design prowess which India has and how do we convert into product leadership, right? So to add basically a couple of thoughts to Ajay sir is that one thing is that we need to have a sovereign product in the infrastructure, digital infrastructure, which is networking. Now you see basically this fiber to the home is basically becoming ubiquitous, and probably that's going to be the vehicle to reach to the last mile of the people, right? So I'll add to the list of the products. One is the ONT device, right? So we are basically, if you look India today, there are
a little louder.
Three to four telecom companies which are manufacturing the products in India. Nevis was one which got out. Tejas is one and a couple of more, right? So we need one device.
Can't hear you, Satya. Please,
Yeah,
come
Satya, you're
closer
getting
to
a
the
little
mic.
loud. Yeah,
Come
Satya, you're
closer to
getting a
the
little
mic.
louder. Something wrong with the mic, I think.
Okay. Is it better?
Slightly.
Okay. Otherwise, I'll just break after this comment and then get the headphone, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
So the ONT, which basically goes to the premises to deliver the fiber, that is something which is very important to build the digital infrastructure. And I think what Radha was mentioning, some device to basically deliver the education to the basically the people. It could be a tablet kind of the device. Means we had a beautiful program called Akash about 8 years back. It went nowhere, basically just like Ajay sir took so many examples, right? It was a beautifully crafted program. So I think our problem is not the ideas. Our problem is execution. Okay. I think between industry, government, academia, we have enough good ideas, but we have totally failed on execution. So I think giving a complete picture, right, to add, synthesize everybody's opinion and what IESA's recommendation, we should create a 15-year roadmap for the country, which involves the R&D, products and manufacturing, and basically allocate $15 billion, $30 billion over 15 years, 30. That comes to $2 billion per year, and allocate that money in ratio of 70, 20, 10. 70 for manufacturing, 20 for product design, and 10 for basic R&D, right? Manufacturing is certainly investment heavy, so we need more money. And this cannot be done sequentially. This has to be done now. All the three things have to be done now, and put whole this infrastructure under a national body like National Electronics Commission, directly reporting to PMO. That's the kind of the input we got from the Vision Summit and revalidation of what me, Ajay, and other basically JC and all of this we are thinking, right? It needs to have that look and feel of a company, professional company, right? That will generate a lot of confidence in investors, R&D people, and so on and so forth to invest in this area. So I think $30 billion, 15 years, 70, 20, 10.
Okay. JC, you've also been involved with the IESA very closely in the entire ecosystem. I mean, what would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I totally concur with what Ajay sir and Dr. Satya, talked about their vision. Can you hear me?
Better.
Okay. So, I totally concur with what, Ajay sir and Dr. Satya talked about the requirements. One thing I would still ask that we may be missing is we need to clearly articulate the vision for electronics and semiconductor industry in the country. And when I say that, why do I say that? I will take an analogy and then that may be, easier to explain. See, if you really look at the UID as one of the big initiatives that we took in the country, it was very clear that we wanted to create 1.2 billion, 1.3 billion people's digital identity, and then use that digital identity for multiple purposes to advance the economy, to better the lives of people, and so on and so forth. I think for electronics and semiconductor, we need to have that kind of a clarity in the vision, what we want to drive. Do we want to make India a hub for 7 billion products used by 7 billion people around the world, to change the lives of, better the lives of those 7 billion people, using billions of devices that we become a hub for? I think we need to have a clarity of that vision, and then we need to make sure that we can put the infrastructure to be able to meet to that vision. We can show the world that the quality can come from India for those 7 billion people to trust what India can give back to them. So my 2 cents will be, in addition to what was just said, I think let's clarify and put up a vision which is very simple, very clear, and is a global vision that we can contribute from it.
Any indication at all that the government is thinking of this autonomous or a body that will kind of put together this vision and implement it?
Sujit, again, I would just take the responsibility on ourselves. I don't think we should be looking at government for everything, right?
Okay.
I think this vision has to be created, articulated by industry leaders. And we need to, and I'm not even talking about only local industry leaders. I'm talking about the global industry leaders that we need to bring in. And organizations like IESA, I think, play a very critical role. And it's not about just leaders, it's about other organizations around the world that we need to bring in. And that vision, I think, should be the vision that should be a global vision. And Indian government, of course, should be supportive of it. But I feel it is in benefit of every government in the world to use the talent, to use the capability that India has to develop this ecosystem for the betterment of economy, global economy, and for the betterment of lives globally.
Okay. Ajay, one quick clarification. Under WTO rules, are we allowed to ban, let's say, set-top boxes or anything like that, like China seems to have done?
What is WTO?
What is that? Okay. Not a problem.
Mr. Trump doesn't recognize WTO.
He doesn't. He doesn't care.
Why should we care about it?
Okay. Let me come at it on a slightly different way.
Okay.
Many years ago, we went and signed the ITA agreement of WTO. By 2005, we made sure that duty was reduced to 0. What did it do? It completely killed innovation. It killed all the SMEs in this country. And we just didn't discuss with the industry that we should have an ITA 1. So what did that do? It brought imports into the country, and everybody became a trader from a manufacturer or a designer. Okay, HCL, you look at it, Wipro, all of us actually designed hardware products from ground up. Okay, we took an Intel processor and did everything else ourselves, right? So that's how we did it. But all that went away when this happened. And after that, all the recommendations that were made to the government, and unfortunately or fortunately, I was involved in all 5 of them. Okay, and nothing really happened. Frankly, very little happened.
Yeah.
I mean, you just look at the whole opportunity today and the way this health situation is staring at us. COVID. Okay, when COVID happened, what did the government do? Government picked up the baton and said, I want to invite all startups to look at designing products for India. And can you please produce a ventilator in 8 weeks or 12 weeks? I was involved with one of those projects from IIT Kanpur. And we put together a team of 20 global people who met for 1.5 hours every day for close to 70 days. And we produced a world-class ventilator. Okay. So, there is so much capability in this country. It's totally underutilized, and the challenges given to the country are not there. So I think there's going to be a very large medtech revolution that should happen in this country. You talked about medtech earlier. The situation is today is that it's a close to, I think, a $7 billion market, right? And $11 billion market. Expected to be 50 billion by 2025. And we have to invest in health infrastructure in this country. We can't wait for the next pandemic to happen. We have to be prepared for pandemics. Totally unprepared we were. My Prime Minister created that early situation of giving 25 days to people to stay home when the number of cases was so low. Why did he do that? He wanted to prepare the infrastructure. We didn't have it. So all those lockdowns that were done were fundamentally to create the infrastructure, which we didn't have. Now, you look at this huge market of health tech products, medtech products. Government has now set up 6 locations where they will create medtech products. Okay. And there is some kind of a draft policy that's also been created. But I again looked at that draft policy and I found SMEs are totally missing. So, you know, this whole idea of looking at, you copy the mobile model for medtech, totally wrong. Because mobile model is a different model. You need to create your own model. No, but the same thing will be done, PLI, this, that, same scheme. But big companies, 5 big companies, 5 global companies, 5 champions from abroad, same strategy. I mean, I don't understand that at all. Why can't we create a great Indian revolution in creating products for India in medtech? All created at much lower prices. You look at this ventilator, imports pretty much 90% was imported earlier. Okay, the prices for the ventilator ranged anywhere between 8 to 10 lakhs to 20 lakhs imports. The product produced from IIT Kanpur, which I worked with, is 3.5 lakhs. Okay, we've created a follow-on product because suddenly the market has changed. There's a glut of ventilators all over the world because America, Trump told them that produce ventilators from all kinds of companies. They've got 100,000 ventilators. The requirement is nothing because COVID went for a different direction. COVID went for oxygen. So in this company, I told them, I said, let's parallelly develop an oxygen product. And high flow oxygen is where the market will go. Fortunately, that's what we produced as a second product. And again, the company has introduced this product. So, you know, these kind of things can be done in India. I mean, we are able to create products in 3 months.
Manufacturing was easy. You could manufacture it quickly as well.
Yeah. We are already manufacturing 500 a day, 500 a month, you know.
Sujit, I think manufacturing is basically very much doable, right? Just putting some numbers to basically...
I want to say something, Satya, before you do. I believed in something which Dr. C.K. Prahlad taught me. He says, A is greater than R. A means aspiration, R is resources. So if you have the aspiration, whether you have the resources or not, it will happen.
Yeah.
Satya, sorry.
Yeah, no. So thank you. So just taking a basically discussion forward from where I just had left, right? If you look, right, we have almost entire focus of our ecosystem on manufacturing, right? Now, just to put some numbers in perspective, we gave about 44,000 crore for PLI in smartphone manufacturing, right? Taking my earlier formula of 70-20-10, if I take basically 20% of that, okay, which is about 10,000 crore, right? Okay, and put in basically developing our own smartphone, I'm pretty sure we can basically come up with 5 fantastic products which will give basically run of the life for Oppo and Vivo, right? So just take same scheme, 44,000 crore, take 20% of that, that is 8.8 crores, create basically infrastructure for basically having domestic smartphones. I think basically maybe initially we may be 5, 10, 15% expensive because of the basically ecosystem is not there and so on and so forth. Let it be. We will incentivize these companies in some way for basically creating that 10 to 15% viability gap. But it, in today's world, smartphone can be very easily manufactured and designed if you put the right resources and mind to it, right?
Now, a little louder, we're losing you.
Yeah, so same formula can be applied to medical and other areas, right? While rather than just focusing on the manufacturing, you focus 10, 20, 70 formula for every area. Now government is coming with PLI for medical, as Ajai has said, they are coming for PLI in telecom. But if we apply the same formula which we did for the smartphone, it's not going to work, right? Because I think a smartphone was purely manufacturing. In medical, agri-tech, telecom, we need innovation. We need Indian products, right? How far we will accept that basically Indian networks are run by basically the companies which are not so desirable, right? Maybe basically good company. Nothing can be done alone, but you work with the right partners. But why can't we take the control of our digital infrastructure, right? Which is the biggest security threat. It's not about borders and basically guns and bombs anymore. It is about the basically securing our digital infrastructure. So why can't we basically have give the basically people like Radha and Sanjay Nayak and other people opportunity to build Cisco's out of India, Huawei
What kind
out
of
of India.
infrastructure should the government provide? Satya?
Actually, I want to comment here.
Okay.
Two things I want to say on the COVID reaction to COVID, and look at the healthcare. When we had no data on healthcare. Like in the beginning of the COVID phase, we didn't know where the hospitals are, where the ventilators are, how many ICU beds are there, how many doctors are there, where the labs are. And at the end of 4 months, we have in Pune, like you can go to a website, corporation website, and actually go real time, get real time feed on availability of beds, hospital, and so much has happened because the sense of urgency was there, which would not have happened if COVID didn't happen. That's my first point, that we have to create that sense of urgency. Agriculture is another example. Today, there is so much that depends on agriculture. There is a huge population supported by agriculture, but it's left so much to the fate. It has to be technology, data driven agriculture, which we have to follow, not after waiting for next 10 years. And second point is, I would like to do asset digging. Like so many DRDOs, so many government bodies, so many R&D labs have done their own R&Ds. They have been funded for years and years and years together. And they might have a lot of IP, they have a lot of asset. There are small companies, there is no mapping, no data available as to what is available in the country already, which we can just go and leverage and start building based on that. We don't have to reinvent everything. But do you have anything there? DRDOs have been fed so much money. CDAC got so much money. So many companies, there are so many semiconductor companies which are doing small things. They are available. So we have to do some asset digging and say, we already have this. Let's pick what is the most competing thing here, which meets our requirements, and go ahead with it. We don't have to reinvent everything. But today we don't have, like when I was working with Nevis, I found 5 different R&D labs in the government which were building a thing called UTM. Everybody is building their own UTM. And still we might be importing UTMs from somewhere, or there is 1 or 2 private companies here, like in Pune, they are building UTMs. But why everybody is building their own UTMs, and you put a twist to it and you build yet again another UTM. And whenever we work with defense, the specification changed every 2 years. So for 10 years, everybody is building UTM and still it is not done. So to me, that also, there is a lot of IP that exists. How do you leverage it?
Yeah.
And
A lot of questions coming in.
I,
Okay, go on, JC.
I wanted to, just bring in my previous point. This time, if we are going to be doing a real initiative and real plan, let's not fall into a particular segment that we have to solve the problem for, whether it is a med tech or agri tech and so on. Of course, they all should benefit. But I think our vision and some of the characteristics that we need to build for this industry to boom, they should go and help each sector, and they should help bigger companies, they should help mid-sized companies, they should help entrepreneurs and the startups, right? I think we have to think from that level. Otherwise, we will again fall into a mud of it helps few people, it helps maybe, you know, bigger companies or, you know, smaller companies, but then we are not able to build a holistic ecosystem. So I totally agree with Radha. You know, the collaboration amongst multiple partners, you know, opening up. Why entrepreneur is only the risk taker today in our setup. I think the consumer should take the risk also. You know, we are not opening up consumption in, let's say, government sector for these startups to be able to serve very easily. You know, our ease of doing business, you know, Radha talked about multiple problems, you know, people have today. Well, we have improved a lot. We should not complain that much, but I think we have to now think totally openly as to what would help every sector, you know, bigger companies, medium-sized companies, smaller companies, to benefit by creating a great ecosystem in the electronics and semiconductor industry. So I would just want to caution everybody, let's not be only working towards one vertical or one segment. You know, we need to think a little more holistically.
Okay. A lot of questions coming in from the viewers. Shilpa?
Yeah, the first question is from Kapil Bajaj. Are large corporates ready to collaborate and contribute in creating a semiconductor manufacturing ecosystem in India?
Who wants to take that?
I'll take that. I think it's the need of the hour, because I think Ajay sir said from 2011 onwards, we are working on this problem, right? And while all the other parameters are there, basically a credible investor has always been missing, right? Okay. So 3 times whenever basically the fab RFQ and all of those things happened, there was no credible investor at the end of the day, right? And if a large business house, which has basically the right infrastructure, right capital infrastructure, and so on and so forth, doesn't come up and basically put some investment, you know, may not be full investment, we cannot expect that basically global investor will come and basically put it. So just to give a perspective on this thing, I was having a conversation with somebody in Malaysia who has put a large manufacturing plant, right? I'll not name the company, but what they said is that 2 things, right? One thing is that India incentives towards the manufacturing are probably the best. Okay. Okay. I think I must congratulate PLI in a concept, right? How it applies to different sectors and those things may be different, but PLI in concept is one of the most brilliant, basically, incentive scheme. And I must congratulate Matty and everybody. And this is my personal analysis, and I can give you the numbers and so on. But the perception is very poor. The global investor basically does not have the confidence to basically invest in India. Okay, how do we bring that basically confidence back? So let's say basically we have to do $100 million investment, right? 40% comes from the government, 25% central, 15% from state, right? Now to get the remaining $60 million, if one of the large business house can lead a consortium where they put, let's say, out of the $60 million, $10 million. Now, once they put $10 million, then the remaining confidence for the rest of the guys basically build up. Okay, Reliance is behind this project, so there is a good confidence this project will succeed, right? So other people will line up, right? Or Tata is behind this project, so they will line up. So I think what this question is, it's needed. If it will happen or not, that is yet to be seen. We are all trying basically to propose this model that you don't have to take that whole $60 million risk. You take $10 million risk, 50 will come from somewhere else if you lead the way.
Okay. Okay. Some Indian big company should lead the partnership. Okay, got it. A lot of questions. This is from Raghunath Iyer, saying, instead of looking at the pinnacle and thinking of making a 5nm multi-core microprocessor, we should first focus on building the ecosystem and low-end semiconductors. I speak from experience of making 2 high-end processors with the design team in Pune. Your thoughts?
Who wants to take it, please?
Well, you know, my thought is, you know, very similar. You know, I agree on the design side. We need to support the ideators, the entrepreneurs, you know, to be able to design to take the capability that is already very strong and take that capability to the next level. But while I say that, I am again emphasizing, I think I talked about the design, the manufacturing and the materials, part of the overall ecosystem. And what I want to re-emphasize, whether I'm talking to the government, I'm talking to the industry, or my fellow travelers here, that how do we make sure we do not uh, uh, focus on all and not make sure that we do not lose on something that we are already stronger in, and provide all the support that our design community requires, and make them even more successful than we are. So I am definitely agreeing with the comment the gentleman has made. And uh, on the manufacturing, let's create a very clear vision on what we want to do in this space, and how uh, somebody asked a question on with big companies want to collaborate. Any big company or a small company would want to collaborate if there is a business viability to a proposition, right? I don't make this as something that does not clearly articulate what business returns people would get. Yes, the country should benefit. I think it should have a business viability to it. So that would be my answer to both of the questions.
Okay. Shilpa?
Question from Manideep. Top talent in electronics and communications from IIT, BITS, and NIT often move to the US and Europe for better opportunities. What needs to be done by the corporates and government to give them reasons to stay back and innovate here?
Ajay,
Sir, do
sir.
you-
Well, actually, over the last few years, situation has been changing. And a lot of people are now looking at creating startups in India and creating products and solutions. And therefore, it's not that it's all going abroad. And also, Trump has done something very good for us. He's reducing the H-1Bs. So not too many people will be able to go to the US anymore, as were happening. And as a result, it will not be a brain drain, it will be a brain gain, to my mind. Lot of experienced people can be brought back to India if we give them challenges. Now look at the way Taiwan set up its semiconductor industry. They brought back Maurice Chang and he created TSMC. So, those are the kind of challenges we need to bring here to the people who want to do things in India. So I don't think people would like to go if you give them the right opportunities. Now, the challenge in India is that how many VCs are there in India that actually fund hardware? I mean, I'd like to, when I start to count, there's just 4 or 5, and that too very small amounts. This was the problem that I saw 10, 12 years ago when I recommended to the government set up an electronic development fund, which will then give money to daughter funds. I'm part of that fund today also, but the amount got reduced from 10,000 crores to 2,000 crores. And the kind of changes in policies that took place put a stop to all that. I think a lot of investment has to go into design, and that was the whole objective of the Electronic Development Fund. It was meant to go into design, and it was meant to go to fund more and more VCs who could then invest in hardware. It's still not a running situation in this country. So when Radha says I have to go to Silicon Valley to get money, that's exactly what happens.
Well, issue actually.
So I think adding
I can comment on that.
Go ahead.
During Nevis time and when we had to raise funding, we finally got funding from Luminous, which is based out of Delhi, Gurgaon, and has a similar DA of innovation. But I signed at least 6 term sheets, and I had to wriggle out of most of them because somebody offered 2 crores, somebody offered 5 crores, somebody wanted to buy the company for 1 crore. And like our need is not anywhere close to that. You need a lot more money, but the investor here just doesn't understand. And just because they don't understand and don't try to understand the infrastructure technology. Today, everybody understands the consumer-oriented business. They understand the Flipkarts, they understand Airbnbs, and they understand the OYOs. But what we did as Nevis, and before that also I did a very successful software product company, that the investor doesn't want to know also. Now maybe it's different because the last time I went out to get funding was in 2012 and 2013. That may be different, but I found that as a challenge. And in Silicon Valley, you talk technology, and the more you sell technology, it's easier to get funding. Here, it's the other way around, and you have to just say, what is the return in 3 years for you? It doesn't work like that. You are there for a long haul, not for 3 years return. It's a very trading mentality.
So just some of the comments about the overall innovation framework. Uh, See, today, I think everywhere you go, government, state, center, everybody talks about innovation. And I don't know how much of you know that we almost spent 5,000 crore on basically various innovation activities, this incubators and all of that. But I think the whole ecosystem of this innovation is so fragmented that we are not seeing the results today. So I think I will not basically go into many details, but one of the recommendation is that basically consolidate all the innovation framework in one place under PSA so that we can basically reap the benefit of this 4,000 to 5,000 crore investment which is going into innovation today, right? We are doing that investment, but we are not seeing the big results out of it. So that's point number one, right? Point number two, as Ajai said and Radha said, that we don't have investors' confidence in basically this sector. The primary reason is that we are not seeing the success stories out of it, right? If I see overall success stories where the investors made money out of product companies, probably one will be Tejas and Cosmic Circuits and maybe 3 to 4 maximum companies, right? So,
Yeah, a little louder.
Yeah, okay. So I think since the investors don't have much confidence in this sector because of the missing role model, it's the job of the basically government to some extent to kickstart basically this engine. And I think together we and other people, like even Vinod Dham in his basically recommendation said that we should set up a $500 million fund for the fabless product companies and $500 million fund for the electronics product companies to jumpstart this ecosystem. And if we basically do it right, we will get the whosoever is putting the money with government, they are going to easily get 10x return out of it and basically very large number of the jobs out of it. So we should not be asking everything from the government, but in this particular case, since there is bootstrapping needed, and that's where basically the government can put a long-term vision and the investment to in 3 areas, right? Consolidate all the innovation activities under PSA, put $500 million fund for the fabless and $500 million fund for electronics product companies.
Yeah, this money, I guess, is very important. I remember Paul Raj also mentioned, which I've heard others also say, that companies like such high salary can attract those people to come out and do something on their own will require a lot of money, and that has to come, I guess, the VCs are not coming on their own, then it has to come from the government, and then government together with the VCs can do something.
Absolutely. I think Paul Raj said very clearly, a typical fabless company in US before they go to the first production raises about 20 to 30 million dollars, right? The typical fabless company spend. We have kind of figured out a way to do the same thing in 5 to 10 million dollars. But today, if you see the state of fabless companies, they hardly get couple of $100,000 to $500,000 type of the funding. And once you are underfunded, you're not going to be successful if you are underfunded, however good the idea may be, right?
Deepak?
Sorry, we have a question from Tejas Gangane. Do we have a continuous loop of consumer feedback in the electronic space? The startups do connect better, but I feel when it comes to consortiums or established companies, the consumer feedback absorption for improving market adaptability of the product is very low. How can we improve on this?
wants to take that? Satya?
Looks like I'm the default choice, right? See, I think taking the question into little bit larger sense, right? I think a lot of us talked about.
We can't hear you, Satya. Please look at your.
Yeah, Satya, you have to be a little, closer to the mic or something.
Closer to the mic.
Yeah.
Is it better now?
Slightly, yes.
Yeah, sorry. So I think all of us talked about basically we have the technical capabilities. Now, if you want to put up a product company, right, there are basically a couple of ingredients which go into that, right? We are good at design. The second big ingredient required is a product design, right? Okay. Just to take some very old example, iPod, right? iPod was not new technology. It was just all about product design, right? So they did a good product design. So we lack the similar kind of the capability as much as we have the design or the product design, right? Second is that basically our business side of the startup or a product company where you define the product, get the customer feedback, what the Tejas is asking and so on and so forth, right? That ecosystem and those capabilities are still not as well basically established as the design capabilities. So I think our technology wizards, when they come out and start a company, right, we need to supplement them with the product engineering and the business side to make a complete package, which can be basically sold to investors, can be sold to customers and so on and so forth, right? So I think we need to build the strength in the product engineering and the business side of the technology product startups.
Okay. Couple of similar questions. One from Raghu. Chip design in India is not a problem. Making market accessible for Indian-made electronics products is a problem. How do we solve this? And a similar question, how successful has the government's preference for domestically manufactured electronic goods policy been?
Well, actually, I wrote the paper on this with my colleagues 10 years ago again. I'm sorry to keep repeating 10 years, but that's the way it is. We wrote the whole concept of preferential market access. And actually, it was completely destroyed by vested interests.
Really?
And yes, it was derailed. It was derailed again and again and again and again. Suddenly, in the last 6 to 12 months, I'm starting to hear that the government is going to take action around those, and there will be a very positive development around the preferential market access. Now you look at it, when we say we want to create a set-top box in India, why can't you say that the chip has to be designed in India for the set-top box? Once you say that, automatically the whole market becomes different.
Okay.
So, these kind of mandates that need to be created in the country to help the startups and smaller companies to create products is what we need to do. We need to create a very supportive environment for some things like this. Now, Radha talked about the whole issue of selling to government. Now, government in the last 4 or 5 years has done a great job in setting up something called GEM, the Government Electronic Marketplace. But you go to the GEM people and ask them, tell them that we are a startup and we want to get our product registered. It takes 60 to 90 days to maybe 120 days. Why? Because they'll put all kinds of processes which the little startup has no capability to put together. Now, when we went for getting this ventilator registered with GEM, they said there is no standards in the country, so we'll have a BIS standard. So you must get a BIS certification to get registered. That BIS, when we went to BIS said we've not set up the standards as yet. We are thinking about it. So where do? You fall through the gap. Neither are you in GEM, nor are you selling to government. And what is happening? So these are the kind of situations that the ease of doing business needs to be brought back into some of these issues where startups can create products and genuinely sell to the government. Lots of changes have taken place in the last 1 year. Government has started allowing this whole concept that L1 is not necessary for startups. Certain percentage can be given to startups, but the people who are buying are not taking care of it.
Not taking
care of it. They don't care about this. They still want to go and get from established companies.
Okay.
So what was
Okay.
mentioned earlier, the consumer must open up also, like what JC was saying. Consumer
Yeah,
must
okay.
open their eyes to say, I want to promote Indian also. So now there's this whole voice about vocal for local, but I hope that continues.
Yeah, just one
Yeah.
addition I will make. I agree there should be a support system provided for the entrepreneurs and consumer. In this case, big companies, governments can take little more risk. But again, I would just one more challenge I would throw. A comparison I have drawn from the Israel tech ecosystem or startup ecosystem and India ecosystem. I think we still look at the local market to begin with. In comparison, when I look at the Israel startup ecosystem, they look at the global market to serve. So their mindset and who they are depending on is totally different than how we may be looking at. Now, I am no entrepreneur or a startup myself, so I just have an experience of what I observe from within these ecosystems. But that is one challenge I think even to our entrepreneur ecosystem or startup ecosystem we need to throw, to look globally. And of course, we have the responsibility to support these ecosystems from the companies and from government side.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
So
Israel has no choice, right? Israel has no choice. They don't have any local market, right? So
local market at all, no?
Yeah.
No, this definitely works when you go sell, go have your company have something in America and you sell in American market little bit. Even if you have one customer, now your case in India is much stronger. And if you have established some price points there, then also your case in India is much stronger, because other thing which I have experienced is random price discussions. So you take 10 days to prepare a quotation to a large bank, private bank, and technology evaluation has gone on for 10 months, 6 months. You keep building features for them because they want everything in that product before they buy. Then when the negotiation goes to the purchase department, then arbitrarily he starts that, okay, whatever is your quotation, I'll start with 50%. I'll start with 90% because Cisco is giving me 90% discount. But please disclose me what price Cisco quoted you in the first place. So it's a very random discussion and very random way of working also. And yet you are trying to sell to that customer. So by the way, Raghu is a co-founder of Nevis, and he has built the Nevis chips supernova that we have as our IP right now. And he is very knowledgeable and amongst the best brains in the country on the semiconductors.
Okay. Okay.
So just one comment. I was talking to Radha before the meeting as a pre-meeting, right? And one of the things which she mentioned and kind of hit me is that basically the whole procurement system in these places is run by basically people who are not content experts, right? They're not content expert, right? Basically they are general purpose consulting companies who have basically just fresh MBAs who are doing basically all of this thing, right? They have very smart people, but they are not basically content expertise. So that's why basically I think Radha, you can shed more light on your experience of it. I thought I'll bring it up because you mentioned in the pre-meeting, right? Is that the whole procurement system is basically needs to be run by basically people who know that equipment, that basically subject matter and so on and so forth. So we can get basically right specs, not basically spec which basically big company gives, they cut and paste and put that same spec in the RFP, right? And that is basically very detrimental. Means what we are saying may be a little controversial, but I think that's what happens in the real life, right? And Radha, you want to say something about it?
I mentioned it to you, and we had this very difficult time fixing the price for the product. And see, if we take an MNC, a large MNC, that India business is very low volume for them. It's just that they have to put their footprint there and they have to say that, okay, I have all the Indian private banks as my customers. It's a strategy that they have, but it's not adding to their revenues and it's not making a significant difference. But to me, as a startup and as Nevis, every single business matters so much. Every single government business matters so much. And we have sold in defense, and it takes it just takes a lot of effort to sell in defense. And that's where, when it comes to pricing, and when the government agencies are sitting with you and trying to fix the pricing, they don't have any clue as to what exactly this product is about. They don't even want to know. They don't want to stick out their necks, because they might be they might be seen as treating a private company or a startup, doing some favoritism there and all. So where do you go? How do you solve all these issues? And yet it's very important to sell to all these agencies.
Okay. Shilpa?
We have this question from Anup Datta. While startups in other sectors do get mentored well, what can be done to improve the scenario for mentorships of semiconductor startups?
We
Are
are
there
there.
a lot of incubators?
I think answer is simple, is that all of us are there to help. There are not that many semiconductor startups. We have basically our doors open to mentor both technical and business side to any fabulous startup, because that's our core area. So Anup, let's have a meeting tomorrow, 5 o'clock, as we discussed, and then basically take it forward.
Does Intel have a incubator?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to just pitch in there. This is an area to, mentor. We are very, very open. Actually, we have a, hardware startup incubator. We call it Makers Lab. We started 4 years back. It has, a facility where we provide direct relationship with our engineering technical workforce for people to be able to take mentorship. Provide them access to some of the tools and equipment that may be very expensive for a startup to afford as our lab. But to answer this question, absolutely, if there is a mentorship required, we have few frameworks under which people can take the mentorship. And I would just ask, ask us, put in a mail or phone call, and people would just come out and go extra mile to help. So we are definitely open.
Okay. As a matter of fact, not just for semiconductors one part, but for electronic products also. In the last few years, there have been incubators set up. There's one incubator that we are both involved in, which is the Electropreneur Park, which is part of the University of Delhi. And there are only hardware startups, and all these hardware startups are specifically mentored by the right people. As a matter of fact, all of us spend time with a lot of those companies, and some of them have actually gone out.
How many startups?
Companies and have got funding and have taken off. So
26 startups.
Okay.
26 startups out of about basically 16 have already basically revenue generating startups.
Yeah. Okay. There's a question from Samshvi Holi. What is the magnitude of the second-hand market of smartphones, and how many mobile companies are taking back older phones on exchange and using components spares? Are we lacking in this space?
It's a very big market that's opened up, and it started happening a lot more during COVID, when people had no option but to have 2 phones and 3 phones at home because of a lot of work that moved to home. And so this market is quite large. As a matter of fact, I invested in a startup many years ago just in this area, and then they got funded from a VC. They're doing very, very well. So this market is now starting to see quite a lot of traction. I've just, another startup has recently contacted me, and they are getting into this business in a very big way. So I think this market is going to be quite large. And you will see
the Amazons,
etc. of this world also getting into this market.
Yes,
sorry?
You were talking
to see Amazons, etc. also getting into this market.
Satya, you were saying?
No, Jesse, you were talking to a company in this space last year to set up their operation in India, right? So you want to mention
Yeah, I will just leave it. I don't want to. I'm under NDA for that one. So
Okay, okay. Okay. Shilpa?
Um, the fleet China sentiment is spurring India's fab ambitions. Do you think where are we on this journey?
Couldn't hear you properly.
Sorry, sir. There's a question on how the fleet China sentiment is spurring India's fab ambition, and where are we on this journey?
Currently nowhere. We have to really do a lot of work. I think that's what we've been discussing. I think most critically, we need to move fast at a pace that is never been seen before. And that's something that we are really pushing the government. We are making presentations and talking to them and getting them to move on it, because I think we really don't have a choice. When we have a security situation the way we have, I mean, how do you know that there are no trapdoors in any of the stuff that you're buying from China, and spyware in the hardware products that you're buying from China? You have no idea. So I think we need to move very fast. And that's something that hopefully will happen, because I think we've had a couple of meetings, me and Satya, with the powers that be, that they should take quick decisions on this area.
In the IESA summit, Vinodham mentioned this, that Moore's law is coming to an end, and therefore a level playing field is emerging for countries to invest in advanced silicon technologies. I didn't fully understand what he said. But can you explain that? I mean, what is the India advantage?
well, on Moore's law, this these predictions have been going on for many years, Sujit. But let me tell you, Intel's perspective on it. This over the last 50 years or so, Moore's law has been setting the pace of for innovation and development. And
Right.
I can speak for Intel that our engineers really draw a big inspiration from Moore's law to invent and advance the technology and shatter barriers for our customers, right, through innovation. So for us, this is very still permanent and valid, and we look to it for innovation. So now, if somebody is, if we say that Moore's law, we want to shy away from it, then maybe you're shying away from being challenged by innovation.
Okay.
That is how we look at it. But one is innovating at the next level, taking the challenge of Moore's law and keep innovating. I think there is where we stand. There may be cases where you may not want to have innovations at the next level and really work out some solutions and products at lower levels. That may also be open market. But for us, it is very valid, and our engineers really take inspiration from it, and that's where the innovation from for the semiconductor industry still comes.
Okay.
So I think, Sujit, just to take a little bit, when I had a discussion with Vinod about it, what we really mean is that basically it is slowing down and it's becoming more expensive, right? Basically, so it's not basically the pace of 18 years doubling. I think that pace is slowing down. It is taking much longer to basically go to the doubling of the density and so on and so forth. And secondly, it's becoming much more expensive. So while basically big companies can afford and do all of these things, right, it's becoming more and more challenging for smaller companies to go to a 7 nanometer and 5 nanometer technology. So second is that basically slowing down of the Moore's law is also basically making us look into other dimensions of basically scaling. For example, even at Intel, right, the latest Lake Field had done so many innovation basically which are in the different dimensions than just process scaling. The way they did 3D stacking, the way basically they combined the chips of the different technologies on the same die and so on and so forth, right? So slowing down of the Moore's law has opened up the possibilities of innovating in other dimensions of scaling, to keep the pace at the product level, we should still get the same performance and same cost and so on and so forth. But certainly people are looking at all the other dimensions also because it has become so expensive now.
Okay. Shilpa, any more questions?
No, Sujit, nothing.
Yeah, so great. I mean, audience questions. Yeah, I had. Yeah, okay, great. Anything anybody wants to add further? We already well past our 1 hour.
Yeah. So maybe some just 1 minute closing remark from each one of them will be good, right?
Yeah, okay. Ajay?
All I want to say is that we've had series of missed opportunities. Let's not miss them anymore.
Right.
We have now a neighbor who's actually entered our territory. We better be careful.
Okay. JC?
Yeah, Sujit, I think the electronics and semiconductor industry is going to be in the forefront of making our businesses flourish, our lives become better in the next many decades. And I think we all, can play a big role from India to make sure that we are contributing to that global ecosystem that requires the competency that India has, whether it is talent, whether it is products for the local market, and overall, making this ecosystem really very well tied up with the global technology ecosystem. So that is what we need to take an aspiration.
Radha?
Yeah, we have to look at a long-term vision now, and which we should have done much earlier, but invention, investment in R&D, in human capital, in infrastructure, and a long-term vision, because it will take another 10 years, 15 years to get where we should have been today. So it's not a short-term thing, and it's not short-term fixing of things. It's a long-term vision, and working towards that is very important.
Okay, Satya, last word to you. Satya?
Just let me. So what I'll say is that while we work on all the high tech area, but if we take basically the areas which are basically unique to India, and I'll just mention 5 of them, right? I think we can take a basically leadership position. I think as JC said, electronics is a basically enabler for aspirational needs of the country. So double the income of the farmer through use of the technology, education to all through use of electronics and technology, healthcare to all using again the electronics and the communication technology, clean air, clean water to every citizen, and strategic security. We can go on basically on these different areas, but these are the 5 priorities basically which can take India towards its aspirational goal. And we believe that electronics is the way to basically take a forward step in this direction.
It's also what you call Atmas, is it? Cool.
Sujit, many years ago, I wrote about this, but I would like this to happen in this country. Why can't we make broadband a fundamental right? Look at the whole situation of education today, healthcare today, anything that you see, broadband is needed. And for that, a lot of infrastructure is needed. And that infrastructure can come from products developed in India. So one of the papers I wrote many years ago was that why can't India take all its top projects, and each of these top projects will have an electronic requirement. Mandate that it should be Indian. Just put the whole network all over the country, make it Indian. So, there is a lot of opportunity for us because we are already spending the money. So broadband for all is really a mantra we should look at as a fundamental right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think
building on that, right? Basically, see, if you look at the rural India, why are we segregating education, healthcare, and agriculture, right? All three basically areas can build on the same infrastructure which I just mentioning, right? And we can have a basically every village panchayat, we can have a center where a kisan can come, get his soil tested, a kid can come and basically listen to basically Professor Paul Roth sitting there, or basically get their health checkup done, right? And all three can be done in the same infrastructure if we work in a basically cohesive, aggregated manner rather than working in a diverse manner.
Exactly. JC, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just going to add what Mr. Ajay was saying. I just think that if this electronics and semiconductor ecosystem has the capability of making the lasting impact on citizens' well-being, the businesses, flourishing, and economy growing, then why don't we make this as a top national priority for the next 2 decades? I think that is, where we can take our mindsets. If we build the vision for that mindset, I think we can, make it happen in the coming decade.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
actually wanted electronics to be treated pretty much like space. And we recommended to the government, set up a national electronics mission staffed by not just government people, but private industry people. And let it report directly to the Prime Minister. And give it a 15, 20-year vision and make it happen. See, nobody questions expenses in space today. There's no finance controller and this controller and that controller who sits in space today. That's why space has happened.
Same point Vinod Dham also made, I think, there, that it should be a completely independent and autonomous body that kind of like ISRO and CDOT.
Yeah. I think, as Satya said earlier, we all have the ideas.
And the same ideas are now being repeated all over again.
Lots of ideas.
Let's act on it. Let's not even wait for the government.
Yeah, but like all of you said, there is a sense of urgency that has come now. China has provoked us enough, and COVID on top of that. So there is definitely a sense of urgency, and I guess we will see a lot more action than we have seen so far, hopefully.
I think
Actually,
one of the
Sujit, we should
persons
meet
said in the
every
Vision
year and
Summit,
discuss this and see what progress we have made.
Okay, we'll do that.
one of the persons said, I think sum it up in the Vision Summit, abhi nahi to kabhi nahi. So,
Abhi nahi to kabhi nahi. I know multiple people have been saying that now. Yeah. Okay, great note to end on. Thanks so much, Ajay. Thanks, Satya, JC, Radha. Thanks a lot. I think it was a great discussion. And like Ajay said, maybe 1 year down the line, we'll again have this to do a stock taking.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
thank you very much. Very
Sujit.
interesting.
We need the support of media to happen. Make it happen.
For sure, we will.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Start writing on hardware, electronics in Times of India.
Will do.
Create a column. All of us would like to contribute.
Yeah.
And Sujit, let's take a stock of how much you guys have written on hardware.
Okay, that too. that too.
Okay, hey, thank you very much, Sujit. It's always pleasure to talk to you, your team, Shilpa and Vamsi. And Ajay, Satya,
Bye, Radha. Bye, JC. Bye, Satya.
Bye, everybody.